So I said I was going to read 6 books in the month of November 2024. So how did I do? Let's find out. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and this is my November wrap-up video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the newly released psychological horror film, Dead Whisper. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the books that I read. I'd planned to read 6 books this month. I got very close actually. I got 5.5 books done. The one that I wanted to complete, I didn't get a chance to complete, but I'm going to kind of carry that over to December. So let's talk a little bit about these books and let's just dive on and right in. I'm going to leave all those links in the description as I always do, so you can check them out and see if they're for you as well. So the first one I got a chance to read earlier this month was a buddy read with the wonderful Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, and that was Stephen King's Fairy Tale. Amazing cover also, by the way. I must mention that because, we judge a book by its cover. Let's face the facts, right? And the first half of this is more of a coming-of-age story, which I absolutely loved. And I think that is a lot of people's favorite parts of this book. The second half of this book felt a little bit like The Dark Tower to me in terms of the surrealist, dark elements of fantasy that Stephen King is so good at doing. I'm looking forward to chatting with Cliff about that. I'm going to have him on my channel at some point. We just have to lock down the date and everything, and I'll keep you all posted as it gets closer. We'll do a community post and kind of let you know when we're going to be doing that. But I'm so excited to talk to my dear friend Cliff about this wonderful, wonderful novel. I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised at how good it was. Stephen King's newer work has been hit or miss for me, but this one was definitely a hit, and looking forward to finding out, kind of discussing with Cliff what he thought about it as well. So that was the first book that we read. And then the second book, this one was not on my schedule, actually, in my November TBR video, but it popped up. I couldn't say no because anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive Beatles fan. They're my favorite band of all time, and I saw a Beatles book called Living the Beatles Legend at the library. The untold story of Mal Evans, who was the roadie of the Beatles, from 1961 or 62 all the way till when they broke up, and then he was also a roadie for the individual Beatles when they embarked on their solo careers. Now, what was interesting about this book is you're seeing a bird's eye view of the Beatles as people, not just musicians and artists, and not just about their songwriting, but how they were day to day as they navigated this crazy Beatlemania. You see it from his perspective, but then you also see his contributions to some of the songs he co-wrote with Paul McCartney on the Sgt. Pepper's album, 2 of the tracks. So fantastic stuff. Also, his life was pretty tragic, I would say, and he had a lot of failings and stuff that really led to him down a dark path. And poor guy, but fascinating story. Highly recommend you check it out if you're a Beatles fan because, I read a lot of Beatles books, honestly, and I gotta say this is one of the best I've ever read. And, it's one of those bands where you hear about them so much that you kind of know all the stories by now. Well, this is one where you're still finding out new stuff about them. So, fantastic book. Definitely check it out. Living the Beatles Legend. The third book I got a chance to read... Here we go, is another buddy read I did with John from Disquiet and Dragons, who I'm also linking down below, and also linking this book down below. Now, we, in a previous update, I had mentioned that we were feeling a little iffy on the first book of the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. I think we weren't connecting to the characters as much as we'd hoped. I know I was connecting more to the Faithful and the Fallen characters, his other 4-book series, compared to what I felt about these. But luckily, I felt very redeemed by reading The Hunger of the Gods alongside John. And this one is significantly bigger than the first entry, and I felt like it took its time to kind of build through the world, build these characters into more complex individuals, where you start to feel like, I don't know who to root for at certain times, I think that's really nice when authors can do that. And I really felt some of the character brilliance that I felt about Faithful and the Fallen, his other series. So I was very pleasantly surprised that, this took such a kind of left turn into greatness for us. And I think we're both excited to check out the final book, Fury of the Gods. I think we're going to read it in December, but we're going to check in with each other and double check about that just in case and see if we could fit in our schedules, because I think we both have quite a bit planned for December. So this is a fantastic series. If you guys haven't checked it out, I think some of the other people I spoke to on our Discord channel, which we have a Discord channel down below, had also mentioned they felt a little lukewarm about the first book, but the second book really redeemed it. So if you do read it, if you feel lukewarm about the first book, power through to the second book. Try at least the first half of the second book. I think if you're not sold by then, maybe this isn't the series for you. But I felt like this really just kind of took everything up a notch. So very excited about the third book for this one. The next book I got a chance to read, like kind of half of this one was a book that was sent to me by a wonderful author, A.R. Witham, The Crimes of Rooker Flynn. A much smaller entry, so really have no excuse for not finishing it. But honestly, it's been fantastic so far. I've been really enjoying it. There's other stuff on my schedule I wanted to complete before the month was up, is the only reason why I didn't get a chance to finish this. So this is just going to carry over into December. But I've been really enjoying the ride so far. And I'm just going to read actually the back of it for you in case you haven't heard of this book or don't know much about this series. So it says, the Locke Institute has only 3 rules. Obey your betters, gather at sunrise, be inside by sundown. But some man can't be told what to do. Rooker Flynn is a rebellious, hot-tempered pirate who never met a rule he didn't break. He wants his freedom, and he will stop at nothing to get it. But the headmistress is determined to crush Rooker's spirit. She will use bounty hunters, giant poisonous spiders, and an arsenal of dark secrets to keep her pupils in line. Good thing Rooker knows one student who is smarter than all the rest put together. A kid genius who knows strange mysteries that are not of this world. Working together, Rooker's bravado and the kid's brains might be enough to outwit their captor and stage a daring escape or die trying. It's got a little bit of a heist fantasy kind of a thing going on. Much more fast-paced than some of the other books, which I love a fast-paced book. I love a slow burn book, but really enjoying this so far. So definitely check it out if you have not checked it out before, and I'm leaving that link in the description. Now, the reason why I wasn't able to finish this book is because of this behemoth of a book. So for those of you who know, if you know, you know, Brandon Sanderson is coming out with book 5 of the Stormlight Archive called Wind and Truth on December 6th. So I wanted to make sure I finished this 1,200-page tome before December 1st, and I was able to squeeze it in and finish it late last night on November 30th. This is the time I'm filming this video. This book is called Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. So I wanted to do a reread of this one before, December 1st, because I wanted to have a little bit of a buffer between this and the other behemoth of Wind and Truth when it comes out. I've also mentioned this in a reading roundup, which I'm linking up here. And I gotta say, all the stuff I felt lukewarm about on the first try of this book, I absolutely loved. I loved where the characters ended up. I loved the exploration of lore, the setup for the final book in this first arc. I loved some of the science elements and the magic elements, and Brandon Sanderson goes very deep into this book. And that's kind of what explains one of the reasons which explains its length. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed that stuff this time around. I think maybe tempered expectations, or doing a reread, you kind of grasp more of it the second time around. I felt like the first time the whole book kind of washed over me, whereas this time I feel like I got a chance to really dive into the details. So really enjoyed it. Now the next book I got a chance to read was one of my favorite books I got a chance to read in November, and that is The Prophet of Edan, book 2 of the Edan trilogy by Booktube's own Philip Chase, a wonderful Booktube channel. If you haven't checked it out, linking him down below. One of the kindest people I've ever met on Booktube, and also the author of a wonderful fantasy trilogy. I gotta say, The Prophet of Edan was longer and even more engaging than the first book, which I absolutely loved, The Way of Edan. I felt like The Way of Edan set up things really well, but The Prophet of Edan is where you saw the character development really shine. And even book to book, you could see the prose even continue to level up. And one thing I loved about even book 1 was the prose, just the words just fly off the page. It's beautiful, but accessible. Does that make sense? So it's not too dense or anything like that. To the point where, when you have a new world with different factions and different characters and everything, it starts to get hard to keep all those things in your head. Well, let me tell you, this series was very easy to kind of just dive right in and immediately know and not have trouble differentiating characters, which is a hard thing to do for a fantasy series that has deep lore, right? And I gotta say, The Prophet of Edan was just fantastic. I loved it through and through. Not a dull moment in that book. I really didn't feel like it dragged at all. And I gotta say, like, not gonna spoil anything, of course. You gotta read it and find out. But the way it ended was very different to regular book twos of a series. I feel like some books in book two, kind of suffer from like a middle book syndrome, where a lot of setup is taking place for the third and final book in a trilogy. I did not feel that here at all. I felt like it was just going, and then takes lefts and rights in ways that you don't expect. And then you kind of are left going, wow, what an incredible way to end book two. I wonder what's going to happen in book three. It kind of leaves it a little bit more open to interpretation. So I got to say, this was a fantastic read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm so excited for book three, Return to Edan, which I'm going to be reading in December. So let's talk about which book of these would be considered my favorite book that I read this month. So if I had to choose one of these, I would probably go with Living the Beatles Legend, the Mal Evans story. I think because it's very rare that 60 years later, you could still have new information coming about the most popular band of all time, right? So I absolutely love this. I found it riveting from start to finish. And as a total, Beatles aficionado, to still find stuff that blew my mind that I knew nothing about was fantastic. The pacing is fantastic. It's a 500-something page book that reads really fast. And yet you're still getting all these wonderful details about the band. So it's a close race though. Honestly, any of these could have gone on the list for book of the month. But if I have to choose one, this was the most unique read and I think the most surprising read of the month. So let me know in the comments how your month went, reading wise, otherwise. What was your favorite book? What was your least favorite book? What would you say of all these that I mentioned that you'd be most excited to check out? If you want any more information about it, let's create a dialogue. Chat about it in the comments. It's always really fun to be able to chat about the books that we love, the books that we think should get more love. And so, I'm Nick Hill with Shelf-Esteem. Please like and subscribe. I will see you down in the comment section as always, and on the Discord channel. Take care.